Oh my goodness, welcome to Akello Dayan TV. Today we're going to talk about a very important topic. Very important, I must say. What's the topic, darling?
What to discuss before you say I do.
You have to discuss this. You must discuss this. You better discuss this.
It's important.
Mm.
Important to
Yeah.
discuss this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you've decided to be exclusive with someone, these are, some tips that we're just, throwing out there for you to just, give you a startup of something to discuss with your loved one. Well, shall I go to point one?
Yeah. Point one. What is it?
I think the first thing, not necessarily the first, but one of the many things to discuss about is how many children are we going to have?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Can you imagine if you want 2 or 3 and they want 10? A whole, football
A
team.
whole football team.
That's going to cause issues.
Yeah. So it is important to just agree, to form that agreement. How many children are you gonna have? Is it 3? Is it 4? And also tied to that, what should we, when we do get there, should we go to a gynecologist? What family planning do we get to use? So talk about these things so that now you're aware that okay, this is where we're going at X amount of children. If it's 3, if it's 4, there's no 3.5. You have to you have to decide. You have to agree. Where are we forming that agreement? Very, very important. And then point number 2, also something to discuss. Even before you say I do. How do you discipline? So let's say you get blessed with those 3, 4, 16, 24 children. I'm just stretching. But let's say you get blessed with those children. How are you going to discipline them? What parenting style are you going to use? When the children need to be corrected, how are you going to be correcting them? What kind of measures? Do you want to raise them to be godly children? Do you want to raise them to have some specific values? How are you going to instill this in them? So you have to agree. You have to form that teamwork. Like, okay, this is how we're going to do it, so that you don't end up criticizing each other's parenting skills or looking at each other as competing. Remember, these children are both your children.
They're both your children.
Yeah, so very important.
Important to discuss because there's nothing worse than getting married to somebody who is a total disciplinarian and smacks the children, uses corporal methods, and that's so against how you personally raise or want to raise your children. You prefer dialogue, you prefer just talking to them, softly so that they understand instead of slap or sticks and stuff. So that could really be stressful for a person to witness. So it's important to make sure that the person, you're on the same page as far as disciplining children is concerned.
What if they don't get children?
Yes, and that's another thing to discuss. You know what if I can't conceive, or what if it's you that has a low sperm count? How are we going to navigate that? How are we going to come to an understanding? Will that be okay for us, or will it not be? I think this one is really important to discuss with someone.
Yes. And bearing in mind that children are a gift, not a right.
They're not a right.
They're not a right. It's not just because you're married doesn't mean you must have children. It is just the next happening phase in your life. Some couples have tried it for 10 years, eventually they get a child. Some they keep on trying it, they never get a child. So what's gonna happen when that happens? Are you going to blame each other? Is that going to be reason enough to be like, I don't want to be a part of this marriage? So you have to discuss about these things.
Step outside of the marriage to do other things.
So you have to come to that agreement. Now, the first thing that you need to discuss is, hey, since now you're forming a family must stay in a house, and a house, where is that house going to be based? Where are you going to live? If maybe perhaps you have property that you own, and then they have property that they own, who gets to move? Let's say you're in a long distance relationship. Who gets to move? Who needs to move the city? So where
country.
How are you going to navigate that? So because you could be so in love. Oh, I love you, and then now you're starting the marriage. So who's going to make the sacrifice? Is it the both of you? Is it going to be okay? You come to the house that I have, and when the person is making the move, whoever is coming to the house, like let's say the woman coming to the man's house, it is not the man to keep reminding the woman, hey, you're now in my house. No, it is our house. Or if the man moves to the woman's house and then you as a woman, you keep reminding him, do you know I'm the one who's paying rent here? Do you know I'm the one who owns this property? No. It's both of your home.
Indeed. And there's some people who, their culture sometimes will interfere with that. The woman is the one with the house, but some cultures are like, oh, you as a man, you cannot move into a woman's house. How does she navigate? How do you navigate that? You have to come to a good agreement so that she's also not losing money, or just being stressed about the whole situation.
And it's interesting you actually mentioned culture, because I feel like that's also a very important thing to discuss about. Like, what's your culture and what's my culture, and how does it affect us? Especially when you're marrying someone from a different tribe or a different race or a different nationality. Talk about these things so that you're not entering into marriage, then bam, culture shock. Like you've been told this is
like
how we do things.
In your culture, you do what?
I
didn't know that.
I don't know. So preempt these things, because sometimes if we're marrying somebody who comes from a very, not everybody follows a strong culture. Some people are like, culture, what, some things you take, some things you drop. But there's some people, they follow culture to the letter. Hey, so are you marrying such a person? So talk about these things so that now when some expectations are brought about, you are aware that, okay, I was told this is what happens in their culture. So, I got this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And another thing to talk about is exes. Everyone has an ex. You have an ex, I have an ex. And some people are besties with their ex.
Yes.
How will that affect you in the marriage?
Some are even business partners.
Yes, some are business partners,
yes.
and they're keeping it strictly business partner. It's a business partnership, and there's nothing more going on. How are we going to navigate that? How will we stop jealousy from, from coming up when they have to call the house?
Yes.
And I think transparency though can sort that. You just keep your person in the know.
You keep your person in the know. Sometimes the ex is the single the baby mama or the baby daddy of the child they have together. Let's say you get married to somebody who has a child or children with somebody else. So that's the ex. So how do you two navigate your marriage knowing that they have a child or children with somebody else out there? So talk about these things.
I think that actually should be a point all on its own. Co-parenting. It could be not just a baby mama, but it could be a second marriage. It could be that you were married before, divorced, and now you're in this thing. How are we going to co-parent successfully so that it doesn't affect what I have right now?
I can enjoy you as a spouse that I'm starting a family with without interfering with you as a parent. Because that child out there, those children out there, they are innocent. They deserve you as a mother and as a father. So I'm not going to frustrate you. I'm not in competition with them. They are an extension of you. I celebrate them and I bless them. If they sometimes want to come home to our house, maybe even for dinner,
are they welcome?
Are they welcome? Talk about these things. Talk about these things. When you're going to pick the children from maybe your ex's house, or where are you picking them from the ex's house? Is it in a public place? What are you doing when you're communicating with your ex? What do you communicate about? Do you let me know what you're communicating with your ex? Do you let me know?
Also, if you have to, to send support.
Yes.
You have to talk about this. And that ties into another part, finances.
Very, very
so
crucial.
If you are supporting your siblings or if you have debt, student loans, you definitely need to bring that to the table. Like, this is how this is going to affect us in the marriage going forward. So let the person at least come from a point of knowing, as opposed to just a shock, like, how come you never have any money? Why am I the one getting all, taking care of rent, food, all this other stuff that we need? So if you're taking care of siblings, which is a very African culture thing to do, then you need to be saying, look, I have a certain amount that I send to mommy
Yes.
all the time, to my siblings, or loans, debt, whatever.
Yes.
Bring them to the table.
Bring them to the table. And sometimes maybe the amount that you send to the family maybe might change to be lowered or even to be increased. Just by you talking. Maybe because now you're getting married and there'll be some changes when it comes to finances, some demands, letting your family know, you know what, now that I'm getting married, I've been sending maybe perhaps mom X amount of money, now it is going to change to Y. And Y could be either a lesser amount or even a higher amount. Your spouse could be like, oh, now let me come in. I'm getting married to you, so let me also be a blessing to your family. So you have a conversation about this, and also tied to finances. Perhaps you want to start a business, and businesses can be quite demanding. Maybe you need to put in your capital. So by the time that you're starting up the business, letting your soon-to-be spouse be aware that, hey, there will be some demands on the finances that I have because of this business that we're thinking of starting. And if you're going to start a business together, how do you run it, not just as spouses, but also as business partners? So that there's an agreement, when it comes to revenue, when it comes to how to go about it, and also how do you go about finances? Do you do it as a joint account? Do you have separate accounts? She has her account, he has his account. How do you go about it? Do you have a joint account, or do you have 3 different accounts? There's hers, his, and then the middle one
for bills.
For bills, so that if you want to do your hair for savings, how do you go about it? So talk about these things. What kind of accounts do you get to have? Do you get to have a saving culture or an investing culture, or both? Talk about these things.
Talk about these things. And people of faith, people of faith, to navigate who leaves the church, their own church. Sometimes it's assumed the woman is moving churches to the man's, but it's not always necessarily the case. There could be times when both of you have very prominent what do we call it,
very positions in your
churches, and it's not always that simple to just walk away or just stop doing that. So you can come to an agreement, and sometimes I know some people, when they're courting, sometimes you visit each other's churches, and sometimes the man might like the woman's church and decide, what, after marriage, hey, it's your church. I think that's an important one to talk about. Or if you're different denominations, Catholic, you're Protestant, or I'm SDA. Who stops being what?
And maybe you'll end up saying, you're strong in yours, I'm strong in mine. How can you be going to yours and I'm going to mine, but we still maintain the same spiritual growth? So talk about these things. And what if you get children? Where do they fellowship? Why would the children fellowship? And even when you get children, if you want to raise faith-based children, do you get to pray every day? Do you get to who does the praying? Is it she prays today, he prays tomorrow? Talk about these things. So don't assume things are just going to just be in order. You have to talk about these things. You have to talk about these things.
Correct.
You also have to talk about in-laws. How do we relate with in-laws? How do I handle your people? Is there something about your people that I need to know? Is there something about my people that you need to know? Is there like a sibling that, hey, I need to warn you about, like, hey, this sibling, So you have to talk about these things. You have to talk about these things. How do I handle your mom? How do you handle your dad? And vice versa. And when do your parents come to visit? When does your family come to visit? When does my family come to visit? Should we tell each other before the visit, so that your mom doesn't just check into that inside her house, boom, and she's come to stay for 2 months, and I've got no idea. So do we tell each other? Do we inform each other? Hey, my family is coming, or your family is coming, and how do you go about it? If I notice something that doesn't sit right with me about your family, do you give me the space to let you know? And how do I let you know?
Yes, exactly. That's a good one.
Yes.
Also, how to handle conflict. How do we resolve conflict?
Yes.
And when we can't resolve it between us, what happens? Do we run to our parents? Do we run to the spiritual authority, your pastor or whatever?
Yes.
Do we go to a counselor? What do we do? Yeah, how do we handle conflict?
Yes, yes, yes.
Do we decide, let's not go to bed angry? You know, do we solve issues there and then?
Yes.
Do I give you space?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
You have to talk about it.
What do I do when you get mad?
What do
you want me to do?
Yeah, what do you want me to do when you get angry? Do you want me to just back off, give you time off?
Yeah.
Because, some people will come at you like, come on, honey, what's wrong? And maybe that's not what you need. You just want to be given some space. So, yeah, communicate that. Talk about it.
Yeah, very, very important. And then also, phone rules. What do you do about the phone? How do we go about the phone? Are we saying that, come 9 p.m., no phones?
No phones.
Are we saying that when you get to bed, no phones? Are we saying that, passwords? Are we saying that, when you text me and then I take some time to reply, will you be offended or will you understand that I'm actually busy? Should I inform you when I'm just about to get busy? Should I be picking up the call? Should I be walking away from you when I'm picking up the call? What are some of these things? Even something as simple as how do we save each other's names? Should I save you as Mama Watoto? Or should I say we are something special? How do we handle the phone? How do we get on the phone?
Because I know some people do not like to, for legitimate reasons, for security reasons, they say they don't want to save their loved one as wife.
Yes.
Because in case somebody gets hold of the phone, pretends they're your wife, and wants some money or whatever, you're panicking, you're giving money to So yeah, it's an important one to talk about. That one. And speaking of phone etiquette, I think it would also be worth talking about social media etiquette. There's some people who are extra friendly.
Yes. Oh,
extra friendly.
Extra.
Yeah, and how do we navigate that? You can tell them maybe don't be jealous because it's nothing. Or you can decide like, okay, we're not going to cross that line. We're not going to be, I don't know, I'm not going to be commenting on the opposite gender like, oh, so nice handsome. Yes, things like that, that are just a tad off. Or inappropriate. Inappropriate stuff.
And tied to social media, what about your social life? How do you relate with people of the opposite gender? Because are we allowing each other to have a social life? Like you can have your friends, I can have my friends. Should I let you know who my friends are? Like this and this are my friends. Should we when are you okay if I have female friends? Are you okay? Am I okay if you have male friends?
Am I okay to hang out with those friends without you?
Yes, is it okay?
Or will you be wanting to come along?
Yeah.
It's worth talking about. Someone else might say go. Someone else might be absolutely not. I have to come.
I have to come. I must come.
I must come.
And you must send me a video of where you are after every 1 hour. So some people.
I don't come.
In case I. So talk about these things. Also talk about uncertainties. What if you lose your job? What if you get an accident? God forbid. We're not saying that. We're not wishing you harm. But what if the unexpected happens? What if something tragic happens? How do we cope? How do we cope with it? Do you let me go just because I've lost my job? Do I as a man, do I lose my worth? Do I lose my identity just because I've been retrenched, I've been fired, my business has gone under? Do you as a woman, do you, when let's say perhaps pregnancy brings you a challenge or perhaps health complications, fibroids, whatnot, how do we go about uncertainties? Can I trust you with uncertainties? Can you trust me with uncertainties? So talk about these things, because sometimes life can throw you a curveball, and how you handle that curveball will determine whether you hold together as a couple or you break apart.
Yeah.
So these are just a few things to discuss. So that as you build a constitution for your marriage.
Yes. Build a constitution for your marriage, a strong one.
Yes.
When the foundations are right, when you've done, when you've sat down and you've done your homework, you've talked together, nothing is going to surprise you, going forward. So Talk about these things.
Talk about these things. The key is to work in agreement. How can two work together unless they agree? So get to agree so that your journey together can be wholesome, fulfilling, and adding value to the both of you.
Yeah, and I just remembered one more thing actually.
Yes.
You know, there was a time we were talking about how sometimes, you know, some men after having children will expect you to stay home.
Oh, yes.
And here you are, you've
Oh,
got
yes.
a couple of degrees,
Oh,
your
yes.
parents spent so much money to educate you, and then the man you're with expects you to stay at home with the children. So how do you navigate that?
Yes, yes.
You know, and it doesn't even have to be that you have degrees. It just could be, you know, you just like being a productive member of society, and being a housewife is not your thing. But if somebody else is expecting you, you to be staying at home, then that's something to talk about, to just make sure that whoever you're with is on the same page as you.
Exactly.
That you're not going to live an unfulfilled life.
Exactly.
You
in
know,
the name
kind
of
of
marriage.
you're not going to lose yourself.
Because sometimes even as you pursue your own growth, maybe you need to go out of the country to do your masters for a year. How will you handle that? How will you handle that? You know, maybe you get a promotion. How are you going to handle the promotion? How are you going to handle some certain work demands? What if work demands that you work at night? What if you become, you know, your work shifts are at night? How will that affect your relationship? So talk about these things, because when it comes to progress, when it comes to professional progress, when it comes to work progress, it has implications to your marriage. So talk about these things. We're talking about things to discuss before you say I do. So by the time you say I do, you know what you're saying I do to.
You know what you're saying I do to. You know, you're not going to say, oh man, I was blindsided. No, you knew what you were walking into. You're going into it with an informed decision.
Yes.
Yeah. So
very, very true. And that way, you two are going to have a wonderful marriage.
You will.
And we wish you what?
The best
The
of
best
love.
of love.
As always.
The best of love.
The bestest.